My name is Sam. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager here at Fairygodboss. And Fairygodboss is the largest career community for women. Our mission is to improve the workplace by increasing transparency. We offer a ton of great free resources like anonymous company reviews, job listings, articles, virtual recruiting events, and so much more to help you succeed throughout your career. Before we get started today, we will be taking questions at the end of today's webinar. So if you have any that come to mind, feel free to leave them in the Q&A. You'll find that at the bottom of your screen, and you can leave questions as yourself or anonymously. So make sure you leave them there and we will get to them at the end. You're also experimenting in the chat. Feel free to leave questions, comments, concerns in there throughout. Interact with each other. I'd recommend setting your messages to all panelists and attendees so you can engage with one another. But if you only want to talk to us as well, you can do that too. But here with me today is Jen Ferguson. Jen is an award-winning, results-driven business leader, growth consultant, and one of Fairygodboss's very own VIP experts. She's recognized as one of LinkedIn's top 100 sales stars with over 2 decades of experience in sales, marketing, and leadership. And as the founder of Sales 911, she helps organizations shift to become more revenue-focused in their initiatives and optimizes the customer lifecycle. Thanks so much for being here today, Jen. Over to you.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I think this is just a really important topic as people are analyzing, what they want for their next step in their journey. So understanding the difference between culture fit and culture add, and really finding a place where you're going to be celebrated and your voice is going to be acknowledged. So some of the things that I'm going to be talking about, the difference between the two, the drawbacks. I'm going to provide some job sites as well as some tips for analysis of corporations, red flags, as well as questions to ask during the interview process, and then digging deep into, the responses, maybe using some mirroring to really dig into what they're not saying. Because as you're going through the interview process, it's a two-way street. They're looking at you as a potential candidate, but you're looking at them as someone where you're going to invest your time, your energy, your passion, everything you're excited about, and finding a great place is so important. So why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because a lot of our corporate leadership looks like this. It's a lineup of men. And even if there are some women that are part of that lineup, sometimes it feels like this. Sometimes you feel like you're the one solo voice. And how do you find a place that's more inclusive and where your voice carries weight, where you can make a difference, where your contributions are celebrated, and just where you're able to bring your best self and your whole self to work to have a great work experience. You spend the majority of your life at work. So I care about you having a great place to be. And I just think that's super important. Why do I think that's important? Well, I've been in a terrible work environment. I've been there where my voice didn't carry as much weight, where, I was the lone woman in the meetings where, my voice was sort of hijacked or ignored or didn't even leave room or time for me to speak. And I'm committed to never ending up in a place like that again. And I don't want anyone else to as well. The impact of being in a place like that is huge. It's not only psychological, it can be physical, it could be just draining to be in an environment where your voice isn't celebrated and where you struggle, right? I remember there were times where I would just get a sore throat from all the things that I couldn't say. And you don't want to end up in a place like that. And I don't want you to end up in a place like that because I care. I care about women never being in a place where they feel like their voice doesn't carry the same weight. And with a 9-year-old daughter, it's really important to me that in her future, workplaces are better, that, we elevate corporate expectations and that we create better environments with the psychological safety to really embrace everyone in our diverse world, because we're a big global world out there. So let's talk about culture fit. Culture fit is, it's the lineup of guys, or it's all of the young people, or it's all of something. It's a place where everyone sort of just thinks the same, looks the same, works the same, cares about the same things, and they're just very the same. And in an environment like that, it doesn't really lend itself to having diversity of thought and open sharing of voices and being able to bring new ideas to the table, having that ability to bring your best self. It reinforces just the sameness, and with the consequence of that is missing out on great talent and really passing on that sameness into the products that you're developing. It's, not having the happy hours and not being included, and it's basically just the same. So moving beyond that is our global world, where it's over 50% women. It's diverse. It's all colors. It's all personality, all ages. Everyone brings something unique to the table. And your customers, your partners, they're all going to be diverse. And embracing a global mindset is what is going to set you apart in today's economy. So embracing basically the world we live in with diversity of thought. So the power of diversity of thought are those ideas that nobody else thinks of, that spark of inspiration that comes with someone that's a little different than you, that they bring to the table. And it can come from anywhere. One of my favorite stories about Amazon is where Jeff Bezos had like this warehouse, and they're all on their knees packing books and boxes. And he turns to his one employee and he says, "You know what we need? We need knee pads." And the employee turns to him. He's like, no, we need like packing tables. And in that moment, that was the best idea. And you never know where the best ideas are going to come from. It could be anyone. And it's giving everyone that ability to share their ideas that really make innovation happen, between strategy and idea sharing, and really, elevating your corporate culture so that you're embracing and celebrating everyone on the team. So when you look at culture add, what does this unique person bring to the table that's going to be different than everyone else? And that's what embracing culture add really means. It's looking at people just a little differently and saying, okay, it's not about, what does this candidate have? It's what they're bringing with them. What are their experiences? What are their life experiences? How are they different than everybody else? What unique perspective do they bring to the table that really will elevate us to think globally and embrace everyone? So, and that's what I love about culture add. So where can you find places where they embrace culture add? Well, as Sam mentioned at the beginning, Fairygodboss is a great place. They have job boards. They are talking about, having reviews, and there's lots of opportunity there. But there are also places that embrace, women specifically, and it's the National Association of Women Sales Professionals. I'm a chapter leader there, and Cynthia Barnes over there is doing a great job of finding companies that really want to embrace women. Power to Fly, the Mom Project, which focuses on the struggles of moms in corporate culture, Women for Hire, Career Contessa. There's a lot of great places. There's also micro communities coming out, like Rev Genius, and some of the other like smaller communities Fairygodboss, and I know the audience for this particular webinar it goes beyond sales. But there are places you can find on Facebook and LinkedIn that are the industries that you're in, where they have these micro communities for networking, for finding job opportunities, but really engaging with people so that you're using your network to get into the right places where your voice is going to be celebrated. So beyond, the communities, there's also, really going to the people you've enjoyed working with in the past and finding out what they're doing and where they're working and where their voices are being celebrated. So there's a lot here for places that you can go to find those opportunities. Okay, so as you're looking at a company, right? So there's lots of things to look at. There's the values and mission, taking it like, do they have values and mission even on their website? If they do, is diversity one of them? Not all companies have diversity as one of their pillars, as something they believe in. So identifying those companies that do is really important. But then taking it further, do they actually live up to what they say they believe in? On social media, are they talking about, the things that they care about? They say they care about. Are they really showing you that that's who they are? Or is it just a page on their website where they're like, this is our mission and these are our values? So digging into that, do they live what they're saying? And then, looking past the perks in tech, I don't know how many have kegs and, ping pong. Do you want to work in a place that embraces kegs? I love a good beer. I'm a big fan, but do I want to work at a place where they embrace the idea of having a beer and playing ping pong and, that's the type of culture that they're cultivating, right? So really getting beyond the perks. And when they have perks like that, do they have also perks for mothers, for, health and emotional, ways that you can be a better person? Do they embrace working in their community? It's got to be beyond the kegs and having snacks and just looking a little bit deeper into how are they enriching the lives of their employees? How have they handled the pandemic? Are they putting people over profits or profits over people? And, you'll see that. You'll see people talking about, thousands of people laid off. And, it's one thing if they're laid off and they provide that transparency of, we're going to need to lay people off, but how they handle it, how do they do it? Someone told me a story the other day that, they were going to need to lay some people off, and they told them in advance, we're going to need to lay some people off. And they said, this is going to happen. So let's talk about how this happens, where people have the opportunity to say, hey, I could take some time off, or, that transparency. Is it a type of corporation that provides some transparency to their employees so they understand what is going on with the corporation? If layoffs are imminent, if they're providing a place where, the unexpected is happening, then they're not providing that transparency. And how are they living that? Beyond that, the recruiting process. So as you're applying for jobs, how difficult do they make it for you to get a job with them? What kind of criteria? If they're providing criteria, are they clear about the expectations, and are they being consistent with the candidates? I've run into this one particularly a good deal because they're, it's so vague. And where can you really go into discovery to find out all of the things that you really need to know to be successful there, but also understand their thought process when they're looking at you as a candidate? Are they keeping you informed? Are they making you jump through hoops and then going silent and, not providing any transparency about the role? And you know what that feels like. If you know what that feels like as a candidate, how are you going to feel about a lack of transparency as an employee as you're going through your career journey with them? So, okay. Okay. Now let's go a little bit deeper. Okay. So the leadership team, right? What is the makeup of the leadership team? Obviously we want to have women on the team. We want to have diversity, people of color. But as you're looking at the leadership team, knowing that maybe they're good people, maybe they do want to embrace change. How do you dig deeper? I mean, I go into their social media. I go look at what they're talking about, the things they're liking. I go look at them on Twitter. I go look at their Instagram. I'm sorry, I'm a stalker. It's fine. I know what they believe in and what they care about, and I want to make sure that I align with their values. So it's important to me to really dig into the personalities of the people that would lead the corporate culture. So what do they believe in? What is their why? And do they express that on social media? What do they, talk about? And does it go beyond business? Can you see their leadership principles in what they're posting or sharing or liking? Of course, you have to ask the hard questions. You have to ask them, what do you believe in? What's your leadership methodology? And we're going to get into the questions, but you can't shy away. And, I know particularly that's hard because as you're going through the job interview process, you don't want to raise red flags for them and not continue on in the process because of the questions you ask. So understanding when to ask the right questions and really digging into, the different parts of the process when you ask what questions is crucial. And I'm going to provide you a lot of questions and we'll dig into that. But you want to sort of limit it each time, each round of interviews, and depending on the position you're applying for, that could be a lot or it could be fewer. But what are the core principles that you need to know in your heart for you to determine what is the right place for you? And between me and you, it might not be the same, but it has to be right for you. And digging into that. And then, of course, there's a spidey sense, right? So do you trust your gut? If you feel like something's just a little off, a little shady, they're not being transparent about something, one of the hardest things to do is to walk away, right? But what is the cost on the other side to your emotional well-being, your physical well-being, to your just life satisfaction? Because what we do at work, no matter how much we try, comes home with us. It truly does. And especially now in the pandemic, it's in a lot of cases, it is home. So that's why I think it's so important to find the right place, to find a place where your voice is celebrated. And then as you look at the ratings. You've got to, everybody does it. Everybody goes to Glassdoor. It can be so easy to just look at, a really high rating and go, that's good enough. That's all right. The thing is, what you don't realize, or a lot of people don't realize, is on the other side, they could be, giving people gifts for doing, 5-star reviews. They could be leading through intimidation and trying to get those reviews up so that they can find that top talent. There's if you're on the sales side, there's a site called RepView, which is more of an anonymous site where you may be able to get real feedback. The thing is, they both prioritize both pay and culture. So if you're looking specifically for culture, you need to do the filter for culture. because that's going to be important on a site like that. So let's look at the red flags. This is a sample company, right? And they have a 4.9 rating out of 5. That's a pretty fantastic review. Lots of amazing, amazing things on there. But you'll find some really disturbing stuff in there. There's a little too much rule by fear in sales management. You know, when you're looking at someone who, or you're taking it with a grain of salt and you're thinking of someone bitter doesn't necessarily use the word fear. They don't necessarily use the emotions as much. And, you know, this is, again, my 2 cents, but you can feel when someone's heart is in the review. So things that scare me are fear. You know, that's a immediate red flag for me. Here's another one. Terrible sales development leadership, verbal and almost physical abuse by this leadership. Now, a company with a 4.9 rating has a review that includes almost physical abuse. That is not good. We've got little to no training, micromanaging, you know, so really digging into the reviews and not taking the 4.9 at face value is so important. You could reach out to a former employee and say, hey, just between you and me, is this a good place to work? And just very low key, promise it won't go anywhere. You know, you can reach out to current employees, would love to know what the culture is like, and just ask pretty high level. I always find that from former employees, you get a little bit more information, even more so if you know them or actually friends with them, or you network your way into someone who is a former employee to find out what it's really like. You know, there are a lot of great companies out there, and there's a lot of great, really, really great leadership. The amazing thing to me is when I talk to women who have never experienced a great leader, and they've lived like this and they figured it was them. And there's so many people like that out there. I post about, you know, work culture a lot on LinkedIn. So I have people who come to me to talk about stuff like this. And, you know, I'm seeing this so often. So I think it's so important you start, you know, that we dig into the reality of what's going on within these organizations to get that transparency. Because red flags like fear, cutthroat, no balance, micromanagement, those are serious things that are really going to impact your emotional health, you know, your ability to really be happy with everything. Because, you know, while we try to compartmentalize, it's not an easy thing to do, especially now when everyone is at home. So I mentioned the hard questions, and I'm not going to go through all these questions. That would just be painful now, wouldn't it? But let's talk about a little bit. So during the interview process, obviously you do not want to ask all these questions. Don't even go there because they're like 2 slides. But you do want to dig into some of the details. So you've got a leader on the phone and you've seen some negative reviews. Almost how they respond when you mention this will give you a good feeling of where they're really at. Also, looking at the review, how did they respond online on that public forum where someone calls them out and says, yeah, it's a culture of fear? How do they respond? No, it's not a culture of fear. Or are they responding with curiosity? You know, do they want to learn more? You know, as a leader, I can do almost anything with anyone who is at least open to growth. I'm open to growth. You know, I'm not perfect. You tell me something I don't like, I will absorb it and say, okay, yeah, maybe I could do that better. I'll have to learn more. And so from a leadership perspective, it's are you curious, you know, about why someone would say that about your organization? And are you looking for a way to improve upon your culture? Do they dodge the question? I mean, if you literally get the runarounds, that's not good. It's not good. Talking in circles. Do they practice what they preach, right? So if their vision is to have a transparent environment where everyone can succeed, if that's their mission or vision, and I just made that up, that might be someone's, I have no idea. But then when they're asking about salary, what's your salary range, and you ask, well, what's the salary range for this position? Do they provide you the transparency, or do they try to get you to tell them? Right there. Will they tell you? How do you show that you're actually embracing the transparency if you're not actually sharing what that salary range would be? So is this, why do they need someone to fill this role? Did the person move up? That's amazing. You'd love to hear that. But did someone quit? It's basically, these are sort of like, if you're in sales or even not in sales, these are discovery questions. This is like, let me ask you some questions to discover what it is that's happening over there, why you're looking for someone, what do you need them to do? What are the deliverables? What's important to you? What's important to you about this position? All the questions. So there's a ton of questions here, but you have to take it on instinct to know which ones to ask and how to dig deeper without going too far and immediately turning them off, because maybe they are a great place to work and you're just trying to discover that, right? But there is such a thing as asking too many questions. So there's a lot here. There are situational questions. Tell me about a time someone brought you an idea that wasn't used. Like, tell me about that. How do people bring ideas to you? All of that sort of goes into how they are as a leader and whether you want to work for them. Because honestly, for your next role, when you're looking at it, you want to work for a great boss. You do, because that's why most people leave jobs, is because of the leadership, and you want to work for someone great. So how do you determine that? Well, you got to ask the questions, and there's more questions. So, and what do they like about working there? What do they do to accommodate employees who have families, especially right now? How do they promote work-life balance? What do they believe in? What is their leadership methodology? What core principles do they use when they're coaching or training? What does onboarding look like? All of those things, you don't want to ask them all, but you've got more than one interview in the process, and picking strategically what you're going to ask when to which roles is sort of important throughout the process to be able to determine whether it's the right place for you without going too far. It's a skill. But there's a lot here. So you're going to get for the post webinar, not only the recording, but you're going to get these slides so that you'll be able to see all these questions, see where you would utilize them in your process. And so as you're going through the questions, they may give you surface level answers. And what do you do when you have a surface level answer? Well, for me, is I use everything I learned from this book. I love this book. This is the best book that I've ever read, ever gotten, where I've used the most. And Chris Voss is a hostage negotiator. And when you're looking at your work life, your life does depend on it because it impacts everything else. Do not fool yourself. It impacts everything else. So how can you make sure that you're finding the right place for you? Well, beyond asking the questions, you have to dig deeper. You have to explore like your life depends on it. So there's power in mirroring. So what is mirroring? So you ask someone a question, and they go, "Oh, our culture is great." So you say, oh, your culture is great. And you're silent because it's uncomfortable. And they will expand. I know and it'll feel uncomfortable. But if someone gives you surface level answers, you need to explore more. You need to understand why they're giving you this surface level answer. You can ask another question. How do you celebrate wins? Oh, we call it out on Slack. You call them out on Slack? And just wait. And you use the silence. Sometimes as they dig deeper, they're going to come out with more responses, and you're going to find out more because now they have to think, okay, what am I going to say? You've put them not necessarily on the defensive, but realizing that they need to go beyond this surface level. If you're in sales, this is great because you've just, you're doing the discovery, right? And you've just shown you can. But using the silence and spacing out what you're saying has a lot of value. And I know I like rushed through a whole bunch of slides there. So I didn't quite use all of the silence, but you're, using it when you're in a conversational setting makes the other person kind of pull out of them more. It's just more, and you never know what you're going to say. And so understanding that if you're ask a question and they give a surface level answer, if you just say the last 3 words or 3 keywords from their response and you uptick your voice like it's a question and just be silent, that they will be uncomfortable and they will come back with something. And okay, you've made them a little uncomfortable, but you're going to be working there over, 40 hours a week. And, if you end up in a place that's not great, you're going to be uncomfortable. So it's either that 5 seconds of silence to really understand what they'll tell you about their corporate culture, or a life that's, this is not what I signed up for. And I don't want you to be in a place like that where this is not what I signed up for, because you deserve better. You deserve more. And as people are starting to look more at diversity and transparency and having inclusive environments, the will of the people is going to be the new normal. People deserve more. They know they deserve more. They're going to be looking for more. So that transparency is going to be, I believe, the next wave. Is that if you don't have transparency about what your culture is really like, what you really believe in diversity, people are going to know, and people will see you. They can see you. And I just don't think it's going to be accepted anymore, because you don't want to be in a place where you're miserable. You don't want to be there. You want to go to a place where your voice is going to be embraced, where you're going to have an inclusive environment. Because even if it's a company where, they're all men, having an inclusive environment is still possible as long as they do the right things. They celebrate wins at lunch as opposed to happy hour. They do things that are things that create inclusivity rather than, that separation that only appeals to one group. It's not a golf outing. It's something that would appeal to the entire team. And they ask the team. They celebrate wins by saying, how do you want to celebrate wins? And listening and being able to embrace all of the ideas of the team. Someone just said, I just want good humans. I just want good humans too, because I want to have a great place, right? With all of the good humans, all of the amazing people that bring their unique diverse perspectives and can all help each other level up, grow, create, you know, just an amazing culture where everyone has a voice and everyone can make a contribution and every single person can thrive because they can know they can bring their best selves. They can be who they are in the office, on social media, at home. This is me authentically, and this is what I bring to the table. This is what makes me unique, and I want to be celebrated for it. And create an environment where those people are all embraced and have a great experience. Because what is more important than your employee experience? I don't think anything. Whether it's the onboarding, whether it's how you celebrate wins, whether it's how as a team you celebrate success, how you celebrate failure. You know, if you don't have the psychological safety to share when you've done something wrong, then you're not really growing and you're not going to succeed long term. Because if people can't come to their leadership and be like, look, I screwed this up, but this is how, you know, this is what I saw and this is how I see us fixing it, or this is how I think we should move forward. And, you know, be able to say that, then it's not going to be an environment where everyone has that ability to grow. And that's important. Well, I think this is the time for the questions. I went so fast. When I practiced this, I, you know, did it a lot slower. So I am sorry if I went too fast on anything, but it's time for questions. So let's see what we got.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen. A lot of great positive comments in the chat. And I saw some questions coming through there, but I'm going to be checking the Q&A. So if you have a question, please drop it in there. You can leave it as yourself or anonymously. But I already saw a few come in, so let's get started. Okay. The first question here from Yvonne, she said she had an interview with a privately held company, and she couldn't find much information on them. She looked on, you know, the popular places, LinkedIn, Google, Glassdoor. Is there any other place that she should look for more information on companies that might be harder to find?
Yeah, for the sales community, there's that rep view. But additionally, I think I would just go to like someone who worked there before.
That's a great.
And I would go to LinkedIn and just say, hey, just between you and me, I'm looking for a great place to work. You know, just give me your 2 cents. Would you, let's say your current job didn't work out, would you go back there?
Yeah.
You could keep it as simple as that. Would you go back there? Or, you know, ask another open-ended question, but keep it super casual, just simple. And let people respond. I've never had anyone not respond.
That brings up a good point. Sabrina asked, essentially, would you recommend finding them on LinkedIn, like finding those former employees and like contacting them cold? But it sounds like you've had a lot of success by doing that.
Yeah. And you can't necessarily tell from the like Glassdoor reviews who left the review, because if it's a really bad review, it's anonymous. But you can go to someone who had a short stint there, or even someone who had a long stint there, and just say, hey, why'd you leave? Especially if it's the same role or lower that they went into. You know, that's sort of one of those key things that you can look for. If someone was like a director of sales, but is suddenly now an AE, you might ask that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I like this question here. How do you review Glassdoor reviews? Essentially, like, how do you siphon out that person who had an axe to grind versus somebody actually telling the truth? They said sometimes the reviews all sound the same. Some of them all sound good. Some of them all sound bad. You know, how am I picking out what's actually genuine?
Yeah, it's hard to tell, but I go for more feelings, right? You can complain about a boss, you know, it's easy to complain. But when someone starts using feelings like fear, like just, sick to my stomach. There was one that said that, those feelings that really you can't get rid of. That's a little harder is more of what to look for. But also that sample company that with the 4.9 review, it only took me 10 minutes to pull out reviews like that. I mean, we're not talking like a half an hour going through them. I went to look at the lowest reviews and could pretty much tell right away which ones are just like surface level and which ones, felt like someone like was hurt. Because it's about the feelings, there's that quote, at the end of the day, like it's about how you make people feel. I'm sure I got that quote wrong.
No, I think it's something along those lines.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would agree. I think you have to look at what the person, if they wrote a negative review, what was negative? Was it that they didn't like the brand of coffee being served? Or was it that they didn't feel that they were supported by their manager? And I know, like, I always suggest to people, look for patterns. If you're seeing the same kind of things over and over again, it's probably, I'm sorry to everybody who heard that. I have a puppy and she is very playful right now. But back to what I was saying, if you're seeing patterns of everybody complaining about the same thing, there's probably a grain of truth to it. Whereas if you're only seeing it from one person, that's not to say it's false, but you might have to just take that into consideration. Maybe it weighs a little bit less. Okay, I like this question. It's from an anonymous attendee. How do you decipher whether you weren't just a diversity hire or not? That's a really interesting question.
If you were a diversity hire or not, you would look up at the makeup of the team, right? And so when you're going through that interview process and, it is a team all made up of a certain type of person, right? And you feel like you might be that diversity hire, I would ask more discovery questions like, what does the onboarding look like? How do you celebrate wins? How do you, when someone brings you an idea, what is the best way for them to go about bringing you an idea? Some of those questions where you'll start to understand whether it's something for you. Because especially when you're going to be the one, right? The one of anything. And I've been the only one in the room, of only woman in the room before. And it's not necessarily the most comfortable place to be. So do you want to be that one person? Do they have an open mindset? Like, you can tell pretty quickly, and a really good way to tell is if they're active on their LinkedIn at all. If they're responding to people, but they respond with a very closed mindset, like they're not necessarily willing to listen to another person's perspective, that those know-it-all responses are sort of that, okay, you know it all.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. And it's definitely a tough situation if you've already been hired to kind of figure that out after the fact. So I love it. Kendra asked, how do you decipher whether or not you were a diversity interview? If they're just, interviewing you for sake of quotas or something like that, rather than taking your application seriously and seriously considering you for the position. Are there any telltale signs there?
No, I would just ask, so out of 200 or whatever applicants, why did you choose to interview me?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
You don't know any of the answers to anything that you're not willing to ask.
Yeah. I saw somebody suggested once asking, is there anything about my application that concerns you or something like, is there anything else I can shed light on that would make me, right for the role or something along those lines, basically kind of getting at the interviewer to tell you why you are a good fit for the role. It's an interesting way of phrasing it. I'm probably butchering it. But I think that's a great question too, because if they have a really short answer and they kind of dismiss the question a little bit and don't give you a full explanation, might give you some signs there as well without having to be so direct if that might make you uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean, if you're in sales, you want to use every bit of your sales skills, just like you would if you were doing a discovery call with a prospect, but you're digging into whether this is the right place for you. So this is the time to bring all those questions, and and use some of that silence. Make it a little uncomfortable. You're in an interview. You're uncomfortable. Why should you be the only one uncomfortable?
That's a great point. I also want to point out Christine here said, don't read the 5-star reviews or the 1-star reviews as a rule of thumb. All the stuff in the middle is probably where the truth lies. And I think that's so true. They always say there's a your truth, my truth, and then the real truth or something like that. So I think that's probably a great point. If you're looking for those more middle people, probably where the real truth is.
Yeah.
Oh, Lisa, is there anything I haven't shared today that may prevent me from being a good fit for the role? Yes, that is the question. I highly recommend that one. It's awesome. Let's see here. Another question we have from an anonymous attendee. Unfortunately, I experienced a bad work environment. I accepted a job offer with a company who sold me on the opportunity, but it didn't work out. I was only with them for 3 months. Is it still worth listing on my resume? And then what's the best way of explaining that situation when interviewing for a new job?
Yeah, I don't. I wouldn't. There may be other experts that may say something different because I don't know everything, right? But I wouldn't personally. I would just leave it off. 3 months isn't enough of an impact that it would make a huge difference, especially, right now.
Yeah. Okay, it looks like we already answered most of these questions. I see a lot of repeats here. Okay, one more question that came in from another anonymous attendee. They had an interview recently and the hiring manager was grilling them for 20 minutes on results and metrics, and the interviewee barely got a word in. How do you recommend shutting down that conversation or trying to turn it into something more conversational when the interviewer is just grilling you the entire time? They didn't want the position, they'll make that note there. But maybe if you do want the position, what are those questions, what are those phrases you can use to kind of turn that around?
Yeah. I would just, at some point, I would just stop answering the questions and I would turn the question around. So what are your expectations? And then they would, it's almost like especially if someone's grilling you, they'll stop and they'll be like, oh, and then have to answer. But like I said, with the using the mirroring, you have to use the silence then. Don't sometimes the hardest thing you can do is to be quiet when you want to talk more because you're irritated. But those are the times where you have to use the silence because they won't say anything unless you do.
Yeah, that's a great point. I also think ending with your own question is you don't even give them a second to get back to grilling you. If you just end your answer and then say, blah, blah, blah. And so I had a question about this and go right into it. Don't even give them the chance to ask you another question. Just cut them off immediately.
Yeah, it's creating that disruption.
Yes, exactly.
Because someone's grilling you, it's now turned into interrogation. First thing I'd wonder is whether you want to work for that person in the first place.
Yeah.
Because someone who's going to interrogate you during an interview and not just have a conversation, is that someone you want to work for?
Yeah. Red flag right there. I mean, all of these things, they seem so little. And as the interviewee, a lot of the time it feels like, oh my God, I have to be perfect. I'm on stage here. I'm showing off. I'm trying to get this role. But at the same time, I saw somebody mention this. You are interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. This is going to be somewhere where you're working for 40 hours a week, probably a minimum. You're going to see these people every single day. You have to like them at least a little bit, enough to get along with them. So don't forget about that when you're going in your interview. And then last question here from Lisa. It's clarifying again about, leaving that opportunity that she was only at for a few months off of a resume, or anybody who might want to keep something that they were only at for a short term off. Do we even talk about the gap then? Do we just leave it off completely? Do we just, how do we navigate that situation?
Like I said before, I would just leave it off completely. If they ask about the gap, you could say, you were trying something out that didn't work out, and you can be vague. It's not supposed to be an interrogation. This interviewing is supposed to be about what you bring to the table that is going to help them succeed. So focusing on where in your experience you've learned the skills and what you've done that would make you a good fit for the position doesn't necessarily include where you tried some things and it didn't work out, unless you want to share that. Because sometimes sharing something, I tried this, it didn't work out, this is what I did, this is what happened, that could be part of the interview process. But be strategic. What story do you want to share that of when you failed or when it didn't work out? And knowing those stories in advance and kind of practicing your stories and making sure that you're conveying what you want to, as opposed to just on the fly sharing something you don't necessarily intend to.
Yeah. And somebody said you can also fill in the gaps with stuff you were working on. This person mentioned like volunteerism, online classes. If you were doing any sort of that work, while you were doing, that job that maybe didn't work out, put those in there. That kind of fills in the gap. And I also want to note, right now, this is kind of contextual to right now, but if that was your most recent position during like the pandemic and everything, honestly, we're finding that a lot of employers, they understand if there's a gap right now. A lot of us are going through really tough times. There's a lot of changing things in the environment and the working world. If you weren't working for the past few months, honestly, not that surprising. It's happening to more people, unfortunately, than we can even count. So, it shouldn't be a barrier for your interview.
And I see Catherine says here to leave it off or set it up as a general freelance period, which I agree with as well, or any projects that you worked on during that time. You know, that's a great way to go about it as well.
Yeah, that's perfect. Well, I want to say thank you again so much to Jen. This was a really informative presentation, and thanks so much for answering all of our questions. Thank you to everybody who attended. As a reminder, we'll be sending out the recording by the end of the day today, as well as some contact information for Jen, so you'll have that all there. And we'll catch you at the next one. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.